Okay, so here are the materials that you're going to need. Red paper, yellow paper, a toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube, your pencil, your red scrap of paper from the foo that we did yesterday, a glue stick or glue bottle, scissors, your ruler, and tape is optional but highly recommended. So you need to start out with your tube, and I'm going to demonstrate with the paper towel tube. So the toilet paper tube was it was just a little shy of 4 inches. So I'm going to cut the paper towel tube to 4 inches just to make it easy. Toilet paper tubes come in different sizes, so that's why if you're going to use a toilet paper tube, you're going to have to measure that with your ruler. But like I said, I'm demonstrating with the paper towel tube in case that is what you're using. So I just rounded up and made it an even 4 inches. And I marked my 4 inches all the way around. And then you're very carefully, very carefully going to cut through it. Now most paper towel tubes should be a little easier. This is a particularly hefty paper towel tube, so it was a little hard to cut through. So please do be careful. And once you're done cutting, if you need to, then go ahead and clip off any of the extra ugly edges. They're all going to be different paper qualities, so they're all going to come out a little bit differently. All right, clear your area and get your red paper, because that is what we're going to wrap around the cardboard tube. So I'm measuring the tube, kind of measuring it all the way around. Marking with my pencil as I go. And that should be long enough for me to wrap around the tube, so I'm going to cut just the lines that I did, because then I'm going to get my glue stick or glue bottle. It's up to you. I know that you've got a glue bottle in the supply bag, but if you happen to have a glue stick, that works too. And I'm putting glue just on that one edge. So whichever one you use, you're still going to have to hold on to it a little bit until the glue sets. So if you're using the glue bottle, make sure that you're not putting a lot, okay? A real thin line of glue will dry a lot faster than a big gob of glue. So notice that I'm like rolling it around until I hit the edge of the paper, and I let it overlap a little bit. Like I don't want the edges of the paper to meet up. I want them to overlap. So then I'm going to cut, and I'm going to put glue on the rest of the paper so that I can wrap it around the tube. Again, if you're using the glue bottle, I know it's kind of a funny saying probably from kindergarten, but remember, dot dot, not a lot. Okay, a real thin little like zigzag of glue, and you can see that I did overlap. So I put like a little line of glue on both sides so that the red paper overlaps the edge of the red paper. One edge overlaps the other. And I'm pressing down, letting the glue set. I'm going to set that aside for right now. All right, so then we're going to get out our yellow paper. Now, the yellow paper can't be as long as the tube. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm kind of like just guesstimating how long or what the circumference of that tube is. All right, our rulers, I mean, even though the ones that you have in your bag are a little bit bendy, don't bend them around the tube. You'll break them. They're not that bendy. All right, so I'm just kind of guesstimating. All right, I'm kind of keeping an eye, and I look for that overlapped edge because I want it to be approximately the same length of paper. So I looked for my little overlap, I made a mark, and I'm going to measure it, and it actually came out like right under 6 inches. So I'm actually going to take it all the way to 6 inches just to make it easier. That actually gives even more of an overlap. It's better to have too much of an overlap than not enough. So I make my mark 6 inches all the way down. Now the length of the tube, remember I had made it 4 inches, but I don't want 4 inches. I need to add an inch, okay? For it to kind of pop out, I'm going to need to add an inch to the yellow paper. So I'm making the length of the yellow paper 5 inches. I make my mark all the way down. And I cut out my rectangle of yellow paper. I have a 5 by 6 inch rectangle of yellow paper. And again, try to get it as nice and straight as you can. That's why I make so many marks with my ruler, so that they can line up. So you're going to set aside the yellow paper, all right, hold on to it. You may use it later, or you may use it for another project. So now I'm going to take the wider end, see, so it's longer, and that's what I want. I want the wider end, match it up with the wider end, okay? You have to make sure that it's done like this, all right? So I fold it in half, and I'm now making a 1/2 inch mark along the open side of the paper. And I'm going to draw a line across. And now, if this will help you, write "do not cut." Okay, I highly recommend do not cut. Now, since it's 6 inches long, I'm going to make 1/2 inch marks all the way around, or all the way across. So 1/2 inch, 1, 1.5, 2, all the way up to 6 inches. And I'm going to go along that original line that I did along the open end. Again, little 1/2 inch marks. And then I'm going to take the ruler and I'm going to connect those little marks so that I have straight lines coming out of that line. So I don't want it from one side to the next. It's from the line to the fold. Okay, the first line that we drew to the fold of the paper. This is important. Don't rush, because this is where mistakes end up getting made. And rather than one piece of paper with slashes, you end up with a bunch of little pieces of paper that you can't turn into a lantern. So I have finished making my lines, and I open it up to make sure that the lines stop at the fold. All right, that's how I know I've done it right. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut, and I'm going to stop at that line that I wrote "do not cut" on. So I'm not cutting from one edge to the next. I am stopping at the line. I'm cutting on the fold and then stopping at the line that I drew. Okay, you're very carefully going to open it up, and you're going to bend it back so that you can kind of uncrease that fold. In fact, we're going to turn it over so that you don't have to erase the pencil marks. So you need to get your tube, and you are going to get your glue bottle or your glue stick again. And if you have the tape, this will help also. So you're going to take your glue stick or your glue bottle and put a thin line along one end of the tube. You're very carefully. So I lined up my yellow paper with the edge of the red paper, so the two edges are together, and very carefully wrap it around. Again, you're probably going to have to hold on to it, or else it'll pop off the paper. So notice that there is an overlap there. And so again, if you have the tape, this is where it might come in handy. Or if you only have the glue, maybe you've got a paper clip, you can use the paper clip to hold it down while it's drying. Mine was a new roll of tape, so I'm just going to wrap that new end on the inside so you can't see it. So very carefully on the inside of the yellow paper, along one edge, the edge that's overlapping the other edge, you want to put a little bit of glue. Okay, this is a little tricky. So again, go slow. Don't rush through this. You have time. So notice that there is an overlap of an inch. So now I'm going to push the yellow paper down and even up the edge of the yellow paper with the tube. If you're careful, you can do the glue. It is going to take a little bit of patience. You can also use a stapler. In fact, when we do a simpler version of these, like in kinder and first grade, it's usually a stapler that's used. But the tape makes it nice and clean, and we don't usually do it quite this fancy. So now we're going to put on the handle. So for this, you need the red scrap of paper from the Good Fortune that we did. Remember, we cut off the very end of our square. So I'm just making a 1/2 inch mark along the length of the paper. And I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut along those 1/2 inch marks very carefully, nice and straight. It's going to go in there like that. So you want to put a little bit of glue on both ends. And I put it on the inside so you don't see the handle on the outside. So I placed it on the inside of the tube. Make sure you hold it down to let it dry. And I have some paper cut lotus blossoms that I did. This is an option that you can do as well. So using some of your scraps, I'm going to cut off like a very, very, very thin piece of red paper. If you have string or yarn, that is also an option, or like a ribbon. But if you don't, you can definitely use your paper. And I just chopped off like a rectangle of the yellow paper, and I cut the lotus on the fold, and that's how I opened it up, and I see the two halves. I put a little bit of glue. So you can choose to do the paper cuts, or you can choose to do one of the Chinese characters, or you could choose to write the Good Fortune Fu again. I put a little bit of glue like right on the inside, and so since it's along the inside of the tube, you could even easily add a couple more if you wanted to. And there is our finished lantern. So remember, you've got two sides to that paper, so you can do something on the other side.